Everybody's all set. I'll call the Northfield Finance Committee meeting of April 12th to order and read the governor's ruling on this. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Northfield Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. A record of the proceedings will be posted on the Town of Northfield website as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, is the select board ready to start?
Yes.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. You want to start off? I thought it would be nice if we just introduced everybody. Not that anybody has to speak. Just raise your hand when your name is called, so we'll get some face recognition here.
That's great.
Sounds good.
You want to start the select board?
Lois, why don't you go first?
Okay, for some of you don't know, I'm Lois Stearns. I'm chairman of the Finance Committee. And the other members of the Finance Committee that are here are Bernie Parada. Bernie, you want to raise your hand? And Jack Spanbauer, raise your hand, please. And let's see. We have some that are absent tonight and that have called me and so forth. Okay, Alex?
Yes, I'm Alex Weiser. I'm chair of the Northfield Select Board, and my colleagues joining me are Keith Cummings, who's also on the board, and then we also have B. Jacques, also on the Select Board, and sitting in the meeting also is our town administrator, Andrea Lamos. So that's us. So it was at our last joint Finance Select Board meeting where we were discussing keeping a strong open line of communication with the school committee and with the school system in general. And so we appreciate you accepting the invitation tonight to come in and to have a discussion with us on just how things are going financially, stuff like that, and if there were any questions that the Finance Committee or us had in regards to how things are going for you, that you'd be able to answer them. So.
I don't know about the rest of you, but to me his voice is somewhat muffled. So did anybody else?
Can everyone hear me okay?
Okay. John, do you want to introduce the school people, please?
Sure. I'm John Schedule, the Superintendent of Schools. We have Megan Damaris, the principal at Northfield Elementary School. I believe Kevin Burke is on the phone. Tonight, the principal of Pioneer Valley Regional.
Good evening, I am here.
Okay, great. Ariel LaRoe is on. She's our curriculum coordinator. Tanya Gaylord, our finance director. And Julie Burke is our school committee chair. And I think I've covered everybody on the school's end.
Rena is there.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. I apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a school committee member from the town of Northfield.
Yes, and I believe there's been a third member just recently appointed. Am I right? From Northfield.
That is correct.
I don't see her here tonight. So, all right. Thank you.
Yep.
Alex, you want to go ahead and have them speak?
Yes. Go ahead and speak.
John, do you want me to the answers to the questions that Lois had sent that we put a narrative together for?
Yeah, sure. So Lois had emailed, I had asked Lois if there were specific questions that she knew in advance of the meeting, if she had an idea of what, might be helpful for us to bring to the meeting. And some were concerning, just explaining, if the enrollment in our school is down, our schools are down, why are the costs going up? And just some other general questions, so that was helpful for us to kind of prepare a little bit for some of those questions. So Tanya and I worked on answering some of these, and I'll let Tanya speak, about that, which is mostly to do, with the finances. But then I thought it'd be nice to have Kevin Burke give a little update, kind of highlighting, some good initiatives at Pioneer, and maybe the same with Megan, just kind of updating everyone at Northfield Elementary, and then Ariel, who's done a lot of work with grants and working in all the schools, could give us a little updates, just so that everybody from the town of Northfield and the residents in Northfield kind of know where we are as a district, and that we do have some really good things happening in our district. So I'll let Tanya, if that's okay with you, Lois, and
Sure, that's
Alex.
fine.
Yeah, just update everybody on a few of the questions, and then if you have other questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, thank you. All right, Tanya.
So the biggest question always is right now, if our enrollment is decreasing at our schools in the district, why do our costs continue to increase? So I just put kind of a letter together, but then I can go into some further details. We understand your concern for decreasing enrollment in our district and continuing increasing costs. The district is continuing to make efficiencies in operations regarding class sizes and student services to optimize our educational outcomes while creating financial sustainability for our district. With union contracts and increased fixed costs, insurance, transportation, retirement contributions, as well as state mandated costs like choice and charter out tuitions, these are the things contributing to our increased costs at this time. We are managing and working to stabilize or decrease the costs that we do have control over. In addition, we continue to see increased needs for special education services that is not enrollment dependent. One of the big things that we are seeing is that our choice receiving is decreasing, as well as our choice and charter out is still increasing slightly. So what that does is it increases our cost, but it also decreases the offsets that we're able to have to our expenses. So that's one of the biggest changes we're seeing. But when we have 2.5% increases in our transportation, and we do have union obligations annually, just because we lose a few students doesn't necessarily mean we can, every so many students we lose, we can cut a teacher, because we have to have programs across the district. Regarding the cost of the 6th grade move, there were positions and costs that were kept in the budget, either as restorals from the cuts that were made last year, like the adjustment counselor, or positions that were not specific to 6th grade, but were beneficial to the middle school, like the art teaching position. In addition, there were costs related to the transition costs for the 6th grade moving up next year, like transportation for open house type situations at the high school, as well as counseling and things to help them transition the following year, and planning for our staff to work on that 6th grade move. Let's see, what else do I have in here? So the concern was if we had costs in this year's budget, but we weren't cutting costs because of that 6th grade not moving up, obviously those costs were reallocated within our budget, some to keep those things at the middle school and re-implement things that were cut last year. Some were for things that came up in the process of creating our budget through the time between our first public hearing and when the budget actually was voted. The only things that I anticipate right now, and Kevin Burke can kind of follow up when I'm finished with my information regarding that, was the PE teacher addition wasn't implemented, and we didn't make the change from the dean of students to assistant principal. Obviously, the delay in moving up to 6th grade will allow for further planning and staff planning needs. So it may be such that next year, depending on our enrollment and class sizes and configurations, those positions may or may not be needed. And those will be things that will come out of the further planning that will take place. Regarding the capital costs that Lois was questioning, at this time, we're not aware of any major capital projects like a roof or parking lot at Pioneer Valley at this time. We will be looking to have someone do an analysis on our roof within 3 to 5 years that will include roofing and gutters, but that is another 3 to 5 years out. Our facilities manager, Kevin Seaman, has been doing a good job of getting current on maintenance and staying on top of things as they occur. In addition, we've been able to use and allocate some of our rural aid monies as they are awarded to take care of projects at our schools that are coming to the surface. It was our plan to create a comprehensive capital plan for PVRS this year, but with the additional workload that came along with COVID, we haven't been able to dedicate the time to that plan, but we are aware of the things that are coming up in the near future. We are currently looking at using some of our ESSER funds to improve our energy management and HVAC system at the high school. That would have typically fallen under a capital project, but that was the only other large thing that was on the horizon other than our normal flooring and maintenance that we do over the summer that are capital projects. And the last thing that was questioned was the assessment. So at this time, the certified assessment that we emailed and mailed out to you guys on Wednesday by our treasurer hasn't changed since the original public hearing. Northfield's assessment for FY22 is $4,672,074. This is an increase of $236,578 from FY21, but the decrease in savings that we provided to the towns between FY20 and FY21 was $235,185. So it's a net increase from FY20 till now of $1,393. So the question was actually about an increase depending on what the school committee voted. So there wasn't an increase to the budget put on the table. Last Thursday, we voted the original budget of $14,851,290 that had been presented at the original public hearing. The only thing that changed was some of the allocation between the categories based on things that came up through the process.
Just to follow up with the roofing, we had an engineer and a roofing company come out last year because we were interested in possibly putting solar panels on the Pioneer roof. And they both said that the roof, even though it's older, was in excellent condition. So that was kind of good news to hear. So,
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Anyone have any questions of Tanya about the figures?
The figures look, I sort of have a question. Yeah, the figures look good, Tanya. My question is there any such thing as costs ever going down when enrollment is going down? Or will it only exist for costs to go up when enrollment goes down?
So again, it's kind of, we can't really say if enrollment goes down X amount of students, our costs are going to decrease because we have fixed cost increases every year. And the biggest detriment, I'll say, to our district is that we are a base aid district. So our Chapter 78 is not dependent on enrollment. We are capped. We don't see any benefits from any of the changes that are happening to the Chapter 70 formula right now. So it kind of puts us at a standstill. So any increases right now, unless we bring in more students that are tuitioned in from Vernon or have other revenue sources that come about, which are very limited, whether that's interest on our investments or those tuitions, the increases to this budget do unfortunately fall to our member towns to cover. If we were not a base aid district and they took that hold harmless away, we would lose about $2 million in Chapter 70. So that hold harmless is very beneficial to our member towns based on our decreased enrollment. But again, specifically, I think at the high school level, even though our enrollment is decreasing, we can't get rid of English or math or whatever. So we still have to have our staffing for those. And more than 50% of our teachers in our district, and this was mentioned at our last school committee meeting, and I was putting some payroll figures and staffing figures together for the contract that's approved, the majority of our teachers are at the top step. So we have teachers that are seasoned, and that is a huge benefit to our district. Now, if all those teachers left tomorrow, we might hire teachers in at, step 2 or 3, but the quality of that education may not be such that the education that we have right now with these teachers, they're at the top step. So, 50% of our cost is our staff and our teachers. So it is really dependent on the level of expertise and how many years they've been with our district. And as these teachers continue to stay on and move up the steps in addition to the union contract increases, that's where the bulk of our increase in budgets come from. Obviously, we cut 27 staff members 2 or 3 years ago to try to, decrease the budget. And I'm not sure exactly what that looked like as far as an increase or decrease to the towns in that particular year when that happened. But there has to be some restoral of services starting to happen as well if we want to keep kids in our district so that they don't continue to leave, because every 3 students that go to charter school is a teacher that we could hire in Pioneer Valley to provide another program or create another classroom within our own district. So we really need to start looking at the quality of what we're providing within our district. And we can't do that without the town's support to try to start restoring some of the services that were cut in prior years.
So I just want to get that right. 3 students equals 1 teacher?
So pretty much, I mean, you're looking at almost $20,000 per student goes to charter. So on average, our middle of the road teacher, if you send 3 kids out to charter, you could potentially have another teacher at our high school or elementary level.
Okay.
So, to give you an idea, so we have 27 students pre-enrolled right now to go to charter school. If none of those kids were attending, those funds could potentially be used to have 8 or 9 additional classrooms or programs within our own district. So, and it's not an exact, but it's just kind of a reference point so you guys understand what happens when those costs come to the table, and we have no say in that. If, 10 more kids decide they want to go to charter school next year, that cost comes to us as an assessment from the state. That's not something that we have any control over, other than trying to create better programs within our own district to curb that outflow of students.
And also, by comparison, Tanya, the choice number is what, 5,000? So it's quadruple the amount for when a child goes to a charter school than when they choice out to a neighboring district.
Correct. So an average student that doesn't need special ed services is only $5,000. And this year, somebody mentioned at the last school committee, why aren't we seeing the effects of some of the restorals that we have had? Well, we are. So last year, our choice out number was 60 students. The latest school attending children report showed that we have 50 choice out students. So that's 10 less choice out than we had last year, but we're not seeing more kids choicing in either. So again, that revenue stream that comes in is decreasing, so we're not able to offset our expenses as much as we have been able to in the past. And the expense on the choice side is slowly decreasing, but again, like Julie said, it's $5,000 for a choice student to go out. It's quadruple that when one student goes out to a charter school. And
yeah, Tanya, can I add to that too? Because when we also look, when we're filling slots for choice, we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we might have to have 2 classes instead of 1 and then hire another staff member, so that we're always conscious of being financially responsible in that way, in that aspect too. And I think Megan maybe wants to add to that point.
Yeah, I was going to say that we've had a lot of inquiries over the last few years around school choice at Northfield Elementary. However, our class sizes were fairly large, and we'd have single classes of many grades, and we weren't able to take any school choice students in. Since the merger with Warwick has created 2 classes of most of our grades and smaller class sizes, more ideal sizes, we are able to open up some school choice slots, and we've actually gotten quite a few inquiries already for this coming school year. So, I think there's interest there in coming into our district, especially in the last couple of years, as the narrative around our district has shifted to more positive information, which is great. So we may be seeing more school choice students into Northfield Elementary in the fall.
Just one thing that comes to my mind, I watched the meeting the other night, and the emphasis was on losing $1 million, and I realized the difference between choice and charter schools. But there is a slight offset, because if someone is going to a charter school, yes, there's the cost of them going there, but it also reduces slightly the cost of because we're not providing an education for them. I know it's nowhere near the amount of the offset, right?
realistically, there is no offset, because 27 students spread across 6 or 7 grades at the high school does absolutely nothing to class sizes or as far as decreasing our staffing. So there's really no cost things other than student supplies, maybe.
Okay.
and we get a small offset from the state. So if we're sending out, $500,000, the offset that we're getting from the state to help us pay for that charter is about 50 to 60,000. So it's very minimal what we're getting as an offset for that charter
Okay,
we're sending out.
okay. What about COVID money? Did you receive COVID money? Are you anticipating more COVID money?
So we do have the allotments for the SR2 and the SR3. And I'm not sure if you were at the school committee meeting the other night, Lois, but as much as it is great that these funds are coming to us, they have very specific purposes and allotments for usage, what we can use them for, and we can't use them to cover staffing that's recurring.
No.
So we're looking at, we're going to be providing summer programming for students. The staff is working right now on putting together what might be an after-school program for tutoring for next year to help bridge the learning gaps, as well as things like working on our HVAC and ventilation systems to help prevent this type of thing in the future. So those are the things that we're looking at, but nothing that would have been originally covered under the current budget that's being presented.
Okay. All right. Anybody else with questions or comments?
I have another one, and another comment. I have a lot to say, and the reason why I have a lot to say is we don't get to have these meetings very much with you. I won't say that our relationship is bad, because it's not. I can go up to John, or probably any of you, at any time if I saw you and be like, hey, how's it going? So that's a good thing. But my concern has always been like, we don't need to have these meetings every week or every month, rather. We all have lives that are busy, and we all have a lot of meetings we have to do and stuff. So it's just important for us, once again, as I said earlier, that these meetings are serving the purpose of keeping that communication open, so that we all feel like we're being heard. The Finance Committee deals in numbers, the Select Board deals in policy. We want to be heard, and we want to make sure that you're hearing us. So, with that being said, my next question is focusing on the students. And how would you say the morale level is of the high school students? And how are you dealing with any issues that may arise as a result of bad morale? And that question can be directed towards the principal or to John, Mr. Skagel.
I guess I'll start, Alex, and then I'll let Kevin weigh in. I mean, I think since I've been here superintendent, we've tried to make as an administrative team, make a lot of changes, and we have made quite a few changes. I think they've been positive. I think that the staff morale is significantly higher than it was 3 years ago. I think the student morale, it's tough in COVID. I mean, to say any morale is great, it's a tough year for that question, because I think in general, all the morale is a little, down. But more COVID related. But I think some of the things that we're doing, even in COVID, I think it's a positive attitude around the school, with the students, with the staff. And we had the graduation last year, one of the few schools that do it at the drive-in in Northfield, and a lot of help and thanks to the town of Northfield and Chief Layton, who helped with that, and others. But I think overall, the morale of the district is a positive one all the way around. I think we've made great strides in bringing the district not only financially but educationally to a better place than what it was. And I can let Kevin Burke, the principal, talk a little bit more about that, and then maybe even Megan at Northfield Elementary. How you feel your students are doing.
So I agree with John. Faculty morale, I think, has greatly increased over the past few years. The student morale, I think, has been really hard to judge. I came in last year, and by March, we were in a pandemic. I think we were headed in the right direction. We had some great spirit rallies that the students had put on. We brought everyone together for a turkey trot for the whole district into Pioneer, and it was very, students did a lot to help out with our elementary schools. It was actually great to see all four communities come together all at once. So I think we had a lot of good things in place. Obviously, with the pandemic, some of that had to get paused. And right now, to be honest, it'd be hard to tell you where our morale is at student-wise. The one thing I do hear from students is they are excited to be coming back to school. So hopefully when we come back on April 26th, that definitely helps students in getting integrated back in. Our sports programs have been running. They're excited. We definitely have some good after-school programs ranging from, we've had running clubs, baseball clubs, there's a D&D club, there's bike clubs, there's so many different clubs running and students are participating. And I would judge morale for that and the fact that the students are participating in those as good.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Did you want to have Ariel give something?
I actually, if you don't mind me speaking to that, Mr. Meisner, just because I actually have
Sure.
2 students in the district in the high school environment, and I can tell you, well, one is in the middle school, one is in the high school, and the morale is quite strong. They obviously, the bar is set a little differently this year because typically where you may have kids that are a little kind of begrudgingly wanting to attend school, this year you actually have kids pining to go to school. To actually be able to go to school is a huge gift this year. So kind of it's an interesting shift where they weren't excited that school is canceled tomorrow because of the issues with the plumbing. They were bummed out because they would have gotten to go to school tomorrow. So, it's something where I think that it's one of the beauties that has been born from this pandemic is the desire for these kids to be back with their friends, to be with their teachers. They see the difference between learning online and learning in the classroom. They're excited to be in the classroom. And especially the extracurricular programs such as theater, such as band, such as sports are all that more meaningful this year. And it's really a fantastic opportunity for us to keep that momentum going post-COVID and to really develop areas that have been significantly underdeveloped in the past, such as the outdoor learning program, which was the perfect opportunity with the grant that Ariel worked so hard to secure. It's really a prime opportunity to just enhance so much of what we had going for us already. And you have the excitement of the students to be there in truly in an unprecedented way. So I can speak as, the school committee chair, but also as the mom to a 10th grader at Pioneer and to a 7th grader in the middle school, that they absolutely love school right now. So it's a huge win.
And just to add to that, our district, I thought, worked really hard over last summer in putting together a plan. I mean, we had a ton of teachers and committees volunteering, people that skipped any kind of vacation or just time, not that there was really a vacation, but even a stay-at-home vacation or just time away. They volunteered a lot of time to put that together. And I think our district fought really hard to get kids in school and keep them in school as much as possible this year, where some of our other surrounding districts have just returned from, remote from last March. So, I give our district and our staff, our union, we all came together, a school committee, to try to keep our kids in school in person as much as possible. To update you on 2 things, we did send out a survey about returning to in-person learning. The elementaries came back on April 5th, and the Pioneer and the high school are coming back together on April 26th, right after the week of vacation. And we had 89% return the survey saying they were going to come and attend in person. And since that survey was completed and we reviewed it, we've had families that had chosen remote also opt to come back in person. So you're probably looking at 94-ish, 95% of our district coming back full in person, which I think is wonderful. So, and then just, I know Julie mentioned, we did have late this afternoon, we had a sewer line backup at Pioneer. That's going to be addressed and looked at first thing tomorrow morning. So we did have to close school for Pioneer tomorrow, just so you're aware, until we can get the Fletchers and another person in to look at the problem. So it's all on the outside of the school. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Ariel, you mentioned Lois, Ariel, if you want to just fill us in on a couple things curriculum-wise and kind of some exciting things we have happening at Pioneer, that would be great.
Hi everyone, I'm Ariel Leroux, the curriculum coordinator. This is for those of you who don't know, this is my second year in this position. Prior to that, I was high school English teacher and English department head and whatnot at Pioneer for 14 years. And when I came into this position last year, before COVID hit, I was working towards applying for competitive grants, really looking for things that were going to enable us to kind of shake things up and bring some great resources and change to school as we know it. And I ended up with a grant that I felt really fortunate and lucky to get, a huge grant in my perspective, a $100,000 grant. That was a community, it was a career and technical education community partnerships grant. And what the goal of the grant is that it is for I'm forgetting the chapter 74 schools, which are technical schools, to be doing career and technical education within the framework of a regular high school, and to utilize community partnerships as well as underutilized resources within the district in order to make that happen. And it's all about appealing to not only the areas, the industries that are in the region that will provide jobs for students when they are out of high school and beyond, but also to do early college work, and also to get kids doing more hands-on and student engagement. So I applied for this grant with this kind of vision, this sort of big vision about how we're going to do more experiential learning, utilize the land at Pioneer. We have 90 acres, and bring that to into the curriculum. So, and then I got the grant, and our plans now are through it to build an outdoor classroom, to do a farm and garden lab, and we are really pushing our environmental science program. We're doing a biomedical program, and we're looking at adding things in, there's like a career pathways overlay to our program of studies. And it really can embody anything. It can be the arts, it can be foods, it can be environmental tourism. We're looking at building a ropes course that will not only be good for skill building, but will also be good for social, emotional, and teamwork, and a bunch of things like that. So that's really exciting. And I've been working quite a bit on that. And believe it or not, spending $100,000 is really hard. There's a lot of things that go into it. So, and a lot of projects that need to be managed and run. But in addition, we've been working to bring a new ELA curriculum across the district to the elementary schools. We've been really looking at social and emotional learning and really trying to coordinate district-wide anti-bullying and support systems. Yeah.
Ariel, I may have missed this, but did you mention the outdoor classroom, how that's being constructed?
Yes, I did mention.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, so we're building, we have an outdoor classroom that we're moving towards building. We're looking for more community partners. And I've also been doing early college stuff with GCC and kids taking a free to them business elective from GCC that's on online entrepreneurship. I've been collaborating with Mohawk Trail Regional School to pool students so that, because GCC for electives that give college credit requires for it to be an all high school class, a minimum of 10 students. And so, we may not have 10 students that are interested in any one particular class. So I've been working with Mohawk to pool students and share the cost, which has been really good. And so we're running that one, the Business 116, this semester. And we're looking at running some more next semester. I'm also looking at some summer electives that would be part of kind of closing the learning gap and offering those to students. And I think for me, the big idea really, and this is, looking at the district, looking at Pioneer, is finding ways to make our school stand out and increase enrollment, but just make us the special school that I've always known us as. Like I said, I've been here for 14 years. And, there's been some tough times in the last handful of years, and COVID was another kick in the knees. but I really want to, and you're talking about morale, I want to build us back to a school that we, that shines, that is the district that I've always known. So that's what I've been working on.
It's interesting. Thank you. John, do you perhaps, some of them just know what we read in the paper. I was there to hear some of that about world language. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Oh,
That
sure.
was kind of what was holding up the budget at one point.
Yeah, that's fine. Right before I answer that, we have like our innovation center too, and some really neat stuff happening there. I don't know. I'll answer your question first, Lois, and then I'll turn it over to Kevin Burke. Maybe I think he wants to talk a little bit about that. Just update you on some kind of good programming. So yeah, world language was in the budget at one point. It got taken out because it seemed like some school committee members didn't want to add to the budget. But it's an initiative that I think it was talked about before I even became superintendent. I know I had talked about it my first year, is to try to bring world language into the elementary schools. So there's been a lot of discussion about it. And so that did hold up the budget, I think, the first two times. It seemed to be a lot of members in favor of world language, but didn't want to add to the budget. So basically, I had looked at some things that had been done in the past, such as we had NMH students and Pioneer students, typically juniors and seniors, going to the elementary schools and working with our elementary students in different languages, and that was great. Kevin McEwen's our foreign language teacher at the high school, so I consulted with him, and we had outreach to Greenfield Community College and UMass to see what resources they might have as well for this coming year. And then Kevin actually reached out to some colleagues across the world to see if we could partner up with a school maybe in like Spain or Italy and have some dialogue going back and forth between our schools and theirs. But I think the intent was we had done a presentation for the curriculum and personnel about if we had world language, how we could start it in our district, which is called like a flex program. It's basically working with elementary students, kind of as specials, once a week, 30 or 40-minute block in all grades. I think it was K through 6. And so that's called a flex program. And then there's a flex program, which is more kind of an intense program where you're really integrating and co-teaching in both English and the other language. And that's something we would have to build to, because that would require, maybe 2 or 3 more teachers to really do it correctly. So, the idea is, the budget was passed, and I'm going to prioritize, looking for funds as they become available. To hopefully, our goal is to hire a teacher for this coming year. I mentioned in the meeting half-time, but more ideally a full-time world language teacher for the elementary schools. I think it's an important initiative and something that has a lot of benefits to the students. And it's something that will be really great and kind of unique to our district, because I don't think there are many surrounding districts that offer that. So we're always looking at, other opportunities that we can offer our families and our students in our district. So that's going to be a priority, is to, find funds to hopefully hire a full-time world language teacher for the elementary schools. And we'll keep you up to date as we move through the process. And just really quick, Kevin, if you're on the phone and you want to just talk about some of the neat stuff with the Innovation Center, that would be great.
Sure, certainly. I can actually get on video now too.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So as Ariel kind of mentioned, a lot of great stuff that is already happening, which is utilizing our outside environment, which I think is a great connection to a lot of interest in our community, which has a large amount of farming, especially in our history, and that definitely interests our students. And utilizing the outside and having a ropes course and getting our students out doing environmental aspects is all great. Another thing that we've been working since I got in and was being started by John initially was the Innovation Center. Since I've been there, we've been able to purchase a 3D printer. We have a lot of things that kids can code with that are connected to a lot of Lego robotic things. A lot of engineering design stuff has been implemented in there. A laser cutter was actually just purchased last year, which attaches to a CAD program. We are looking at getting a CNC router. We are also looking at getting a poster/banner printer. So there are a lot of things that we are doing. Some of the stuff that we've been able to do, John Heffernan, Dr. Heffernan has been able to, who runs this, the teacher in the program, has been able to get some grants. And so we've been able to purchase some of these items. We actually, when we had some time due to COVID, our custodians went into the old wood shop and did a deep cleaning and did an amazing job. And if you've ever been in the wood shop, if you go in there now, it's still a wood shop. We still have all the great wood shop tools that were in there, but it is ready to be utilized with some, updated machinery. And this ties into our, career aspect where, looking at 21st century learning and saying, okay, what kind of things can we offer students that are going to interest them and be able to basically be skills they can use in the world when they get out of high school. And it's great to be able to offer those things at Pioneer. One of the other things I wanted to mention, because world language was out there, is we did do a shift in world language at Pioneer. We changed it this year so that we now have a middle school world language. So all middle school students are taking a middle school either French or Spanish class that is not a graduation requirement. And that's what they've been doing initially up until through this year. Our 8th graders are taking Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, and that counts as 1 year towards their 2 years of graduation requirement. So they have to now as of next year, take a middle school foreign language. And then when they get into their 9th grade freshman year, they will start Spanish 1 or French 1, and then take the second year of that language. So, we're already in the district expanding our foreign language curriculum and making sure that students have more in-depth foreign language learning experience.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about, prioritizing the world language in the elementary schools is if students can have years of it at that age and they're proficient enough by the time they get to middle school, there's a possibility of expanding the program to offer more than just the Spanish or French. We could be looking at adding Latin or Italian or other languages so they could hopefully graduate high school, with maybe 2 languages under their belt, which is huge in today's world because there's so much, done internationally, and even our area geographically, things, are always changing. So just a good initiative. I think that's really positive for the district.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were able to. It looks like you sort of made an accommodation so that you didn't raise the budget for the extra courses, but you're going to try to work them in and give the students the benefit of that anyway. And I think you've done well.
Yeah, thanks. We're always mindful too. We're mindful of the the towns and the taxpayers, and we try to get creative and but still offer a really strong education to our students.
Yes. How Selectboard? Anything that you want to get in on this?
Yeah, I got a question. This is a big question. It's a controversial question. I'm known for asking controversial questions. I think that's why I got elected to this position. One of the reasons. All right, so
Alex, I'm losing my feed. I might have to go.
Oh yeah. Well, isn't that just that's very unfortunate. Oh yeah. So 1/3 of our residents in our community are senior citizens. We're a town of 3,000 people. And when it comes to feeling like they are represented, when it comes to feeling that they are heard, whether this is a senior citizen, whether this is a parent, a student, or a taxpayer, do you still feel that the school committee is the best way to have their concerns heard and raised out? Because I feel like right now our concerns are being answered, and you're providing an excellent update on the school system, but between the bad press of the school committee that they seem to get and the many meetings that I've gone to where it's kind of like the Gong Show, honestly, would you say that they are a viable network of individuals that are able to correctly address the concerns of their constituents?
So who would you like to answer that? I don't know, Julie, you're the school committee chair, or do you want me to speak about that, or both? But go ahead, Julie, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who you were directing that towards. I actually saw an article in the newspaper today about the select board seats that are open, and actually you, Mr. Meisner, mentioned how you've had to speak to really historical situations with the select board, even when you weren't, necessarily an active participant at that time. So I think that that's also kind of what we're dealing with here. I came aboard in November, as did Raina. And then another representative from Northfield actually was just elected 1 week prior to our meeting. So you have new faces here. You have committed individuals who, let's face it, if it wasn't for our love of the children and our love of the community and our love of this school district, we would not invest our time and efforts into this endeavor, because I think that all of us have had a pretty significant surprise as to the amount of time and energy that it has, required of us. So we look to be, or at least I can only speak to myself here, our mission is to improve the academic achievement of the children in our community. That's what a school committee is here to do. And that's where our focus should always lie. So I'm also really aware that most disagreements, or you mentioned the Gong Show style of meetings and whatnot, a lot of that can come down to misunderstandings and miscommunication. So the more transparent we can be, and the more that we can focus our efforts on the children, and making sure that we have fluid communication with all of the parties, the better off we all will be. So there really should not be any real privacy or secrets when we're talking about these budgets or the curriculum or the communication between boards here. So we look forward to a new day, and a new opportunity to forge relationships that are collaborative and come from a source of integrity, and understanding that why we're here is to make this community thrive. The schools are the heart of the community. I know that, it's very difficult to see enrollment decline and costs go up. However, when we are looking as a community to draw families into the district to purchase homes, to patronize our businesses, really what they look at is the schools. It's true. That's one of the first things that the realtors highlight. I'm sure John can attest to that. The strength of the district really speaks to the strength of the community. So we have a vested interest, not only to the students, but to the community members, to make this district the very best it can be. I have a home here in Northfield. I say I'm like the hair club for men. I'm not only a client, I'm a customer. So, and I want my children to do the very best they can. My son graduated last year and said that it was the best graduation at the drive-in. Who gets to have a graduation at a drive-in with their faces all on this enormous screen? And, my parents live here in town. They're on a fixed income. They're retired. So they're the first people I have to convince to potentially shell out some more money to invest in the schools. My brother's family's here in town. So you literally have people here advocating not only for your town, but for your children. And I hope that, someday my grandchildren will attend the school district. We moved here so that we wouldn't be one of the school choice utilizers. Not that they're bad, but we truly believe in living in the community that you send your children to school in. So I would like to, instead of focusing on what has been, really focus on moving forward and what we can do together to create a thriving, stable, beautiful community and school.
Wonderful.
And if I could jump in as well, we're relative newcomers. We came to Northfield about 3 years ago, and we have 2 children in the district. They're currently in 6th and 8th grade, and the school district was a big priority when we were choosing where we were going to move to. I got involved with the school committee because I want to continue to see this district thrive. I want my kids to get a good education. I want the kids to follow to get a good education. And I want to be a representative of the community. And I want to hear from the community and take that into account when we make our decisions. So that's all I have to say.
Well, it's good to see, you're putting in your time with the school committee. Excuse me, we appreciate it. I say this, all of your meetings are televised as far as I know. I'm sure they are if the television is available. And I haven't had any trouble accessing the meetings. There's a way of getting on if you want to participate, and also if you want to speak. And a couple of times I've had trouble, and John's made sure I got on. And so I've had no problem with it. It's been very good and very open as far as I'm concerned. Do any of the other finance committee members have anything they want to ask or comment on? Bernie or Jack, you're both muted, so if you want to speak, you'd have to unmute. Can't hear you, Bernie. You're muted. Still muted. Muted.
Okay. No.
There you are. Okay.
All right. The only thing I have to say, I'm glad that we've had this meeting. I think it was long overdue. I think it's a good start to have communications with not only select board, but with the school committee, so that we can avoid any type of misunderstandings and have, put forward a more cooperative and collaborative approach to future issues that may face the district. I think I want to thank the school superintendent, the members of the school committee, and the participants for coming forward and meeting with us. That's all I have to say.
Hey, Jack, do you have any comments? You're muted as well. You're muted. I think you have to go down at the bottom to unmute. Still muted. For me, it's down in the lower left corner where you could click on that and unmute. There you are.
There
Okay.
we go.
I appreciate everyone coming, but you really should have been here in February when we were discussing this, because right now it's kind of a mood issue. And I would suggest you look at the Franklin County Tech School to their presentation. Year after year has been very professional, and I think it's a good model for presenting a school budget to district towns.
Okay, thank you. I too appreciate the fact that you've all taken the time and made an effort to give us the information and come forward like this and meet. And I hope it won't be the last. Select Board, have any further comments?
Yes, just, oh, go ahead, B, yeah.
I just have it's more of a comment, I think.
I still have trouble hearing you, so somebody else, if there's a response, tell me about it. Go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me? I think that.
Are we going off this one?
Yeah.
It might be the center one that reads our voice.
Oh. Otis, am I being heard? Okay. Well, and I'm masked too, so I think to Julie's point, I think we all need to work together, and the sooner we can do that in the year is the one thing that I'm taking away from my first year on the select board is these discussions, joint meetings need to happen earlier in the year. I think it's helpful to talk and have talking points about what the financial drivers are. I appreciate the discussion about the programs and the morale, but I think it's really helpful to be clear as an entire body or series of bodies about the drivers, because we all, regardless of committee or position, we all have to explain it to the community. And the way in which we do that, I think is important. So I think it's really important to work positively and not critically in the sense of, yes, we need to look at the data, but in terms of commenting on how meetings go and that sort of thing, I don't think is helpful. So I think going forward, like next year, as I look to next year, I just look at the percentages, and we need to be able to say to people in the community, when they look at a budget of almost 9 million, that 60% of it is the school. Now that's not a criticism of the school necessarily, but it's critical that we understand the major financial drivers. And the challenge of being on the select board, just from my perspective, is it's a lot of information. And receiving spreadsheets and information, I've made this comment before, later on in the process, is difficult to absorb. And I think you guys have raised so many great points tonight. It would just be nice to hear that earlier in the process with the finance committee and with the select board. So I'm just going to go on record that I think that next year we need to have a similar discussion and just do it earlier in the year as we're looking forward. We've made that comment about other departments. I think the challenge with the school is it's a huge portion of the Northfield budget. And it's a huge budget, and I understand it seems like there's many constraints on school financing. Many constraints. So I think that's all I'm going to say is I really do appreciate this meeting quite a bit. And I appreciate seeing the new faces, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of Northfield for stepping forward, because it's not easy. I think unlike us, you have other communities that you have to respond to as well as a district. We only have the challenge of responding just to Northfield, which is a huge challenge in and of itself. So I think if we could just take all of this information and perspective and apply it to next year of let's make a goal of doing this earlier in the year. All financial things, it's a huge responsibility for both bodies, the school committee and the finance committee, for all the bodies, it's a huge commitment. And the sooner we can do that in the year, the better. Then we'll know what our challenges are, even if it's a ballpark figure or just at least knowing what the challenges are. And I'll leave it at that. I'm looking forward to next year, and I do appreciate this meeting, and I do appreciate the service of the school committee members in stepping forward, particularly the new one. I don't even know who that is, so if you could introduce that person, that would be great. Because they step forward in what's a difficult time, too. So, anyway, if you could introduce that person or just mention that person's name, I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Now we kind of like to echo some of what B said as well. I think doing these on more regular basis, if we could maybe do one mid to late summer, maybe another one a month or two into the school year, and then another one maybe around the start of the next new year, because that would kind of time into the budget planning process and would get us in that sort of early year mode. But to hear the positive things that come out of Pioneer is something the entire community needs to hear, because we have fielded some concerns from people who've come in front of us saying, Pioneer's a sinking ship and a lot of negative things about it. And from someone who has worked there, from someone who wants to continue to see this place succeed as a resident, as a parent of a kid who's there, I want to hear all the great things that people are doing, because I see it. I see what people are doing. I've seen it from the inside. And there's a lot of great people like all of you who are up there now who are trying to right the ship, to turn things around. I witnessed a lot of things when I was first in there of previous administrations, and I can see why Pioneer ended up where it did based on past leadership. And I think the people who are in the right places now have the right things in mind to turn things around. And it's just going to take a lot of work. It doesn't happen in a year or two. It takes a lot of dedicated time. And it takes a lot of people working together. And I think at first we had that, and in recent years that maybe started to unravel a little bit with some new faces on the school committee. And hopefully things will continue to go upward. And I think it's going to be great for the community here, those great things that are coming out of the school district. People will see a positive news article or something here and there, but it would be really great to hear these regular updates so everybody knows how well things are really going.
I would just like to let the school people know that prior to last Thursday night's meeting, the finance committee at our last meeting prior to that took a vote on, because we had to make our decisions whether we're supporting different funding requests. So we took a vote on the school budget, and we voted to support the budget that was requested. That would have been what you finally ended up with. We were not going to support, we weren't voting to support any increase in it. But so, just so you know, that we had decided that. There was a decrease the prior 2 years, and we understand that. We have to be careful. We watch out for the 2.5 increase, because if one department goes up more than 2.5, somebody else goes down less than that. And so we know that this is more, but just so you know, John, I hope that you will come to town meeting, or maybe Julie, and answer questions at town meeting. Town meeting just 3 weeks from tonight. So
yeah, we'll be there.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. We appreciate your having this meeting with us.
And thanks for your support. Yeah, to the select board and the finance committee. Thank you for supporting the budget and our schools. Northfield's always been very supportive. So I just want to thank all of you also.
Thank you.
And I want to second that. I want to thank you all for your support of the budget. We know that it's a lot to ask. It's the lion's share of the budget. We completely understand that. So it's something that we truly take to heart. B had asked who our third member, her third representative is from Northfield. Her name is Stephanie Winslow. Since she was just sworn in last week, this meeting came up too quick for her to plan, but she has twin sons in Northfield Elementary School. Her husband's actually an educator at Franklin County Technical School, and she's a nurse with Bay State Health and she will be a wonderful addition to our committee. I just wanted to speak quickly to what Mr. Cummings had said. And Mr. Spanbauer, I wasn't aware. Of course, I just became chair recently, so I will take to heart that, and it certainly makes sense that this type of meeting should happen earlier in the budget process, certainly. When Mr. Cummings was mentioning the timing of the meetings, it sounds like quarterly is probably a good idea. And that could be perhaps a goal for the upcoming year. Also, Mr. Smanbauer, I know that you spoke to Franklin County Technical Schools presentation. I'm not sure, are they invited each year to speak to the Northfield Finance Committee?
They offer, they send out early, I guess it was in December this year. They send out and say that they will offer if we want them to come, and then we work out a date. And that's the way they do it. It's the superintendent and the business manager that come.
Okay. So if that's something that, I think that that has been handled historically by having a public hearing in Northfield, but certainly, we can discuss having our own presentation with the town. So, anything that will help you to understand our budget process and understand and feel like you can fully collaborate in our finance discussions, we welcome that. So I appreciate the feedback, and we look forward to working with you all.
We start our budget discussions, the finance committee does, in January with our different departments. And that's kind of early for you people, I think.
I was going to say, I was just going to bring up the fact that it's really hard during our budget season right now to meet with each of the 4 towns individually in between our budget subcommittee meetings, just because those meetings are usually back to back, week on top of week, because we are under a more stringent timeline with the way our regional agreement sits right now, with having to have a budget voted on February 15th. And that's why we do invite all the select boards and the finance committee chairs to those meetings, so that they understand the drivers in each of our categories and what the increases are that we're expecting. I do prepare a document that shows where we're seeing increases in each of our areas as we go through the process and we have the information available. But if our new regional agreement does pass and we have more time to work through our budget, and as numbers come out from the state, which a lot of times is not till after we voted our budget, which is why some changes in our categories, I think it'll allow us to have some in-between weeks so we can collaborate more with our member towns. But I would definitely encourage you guys to attend those budget subcommittee meetings. They are very thorough and useful. And if you can't attend them, we are certainly happy to add you on our distribution list for the documents that go out. And I am always an open book and available to answer any questions you have. I'm also happy to come to any of the meetings if there's specific questions. I know that I even I get notifications when BNC TV goes live, so I do try to listen into some of your select board and finance committee meetings so that I'm aware of what's going on in the towns and some of the financial strains you might be facing or projects coming up, things like changing sewer rates and all that. So I do try to stay apprised. Obviously, there's only so many hours in a day, but we are listening from the outside sometimes, and you guys might just not know we're there. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to close the finance committee meeting. Is there more that the select board are going to talk about?
Just remember, and hearing Tanya's presentations over the past few years, I've seen that the school system is this business entity. And as the businessmen and women that you are, whether you are elected or appointed in the school system, you have to market this public institution to us. You have to convince us. And some are convinced more than others, some are not in the market for this. And those people you'll probably never convince. But just remember that You got my support, but you got to work for it. You got to work for it. And I'll say that every year. So remember that. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and that's all I've got to say. So, thanks.
Can I leave us with one point?
Sure.
And John, why don't you tell everybody how we rank with our MCAT scores?
Okay.
Yeah, our MCAS scores have historically been really strong. I believe it was 2 years ago. We were second in Franklin County and one of the top schools. I think, Kevin, you could back me up on this, in Western Mass. So we are providing a very strong education. Our staff is amazing. Our students are amazing. They go off to great colleges. They go on to great careers straight out of high school or the military. So, but I do, I hear Alex's point about marketing. We are working actually on a digital marketing campaign right now that we're putting together. Ariel's working with a graphic artist from Greenfield Community College, graphic designer, and so we can share that with you. And I don't mind coming back, sooner than summer to share that as soon as it's ready. The next meeting you have, after that, I'd be happy to come on with Ariel maybe and share that, material with you. So that's one thing we're focusing on. But our main priority, honestly, in this year of COVID was to get through this year and get our schools in as much as possible. So it did throw us off, and a lot of our efforts were dedicated to that. And then last year's budget was approved, and then we actually went to the towns, I think, and worked with all of the towns to lower, $440,000 to that budget as well. So that was almost like doing two budgets last year. So we do want to attend more of these meetings on a regular basis. I agree. We will be here. Whatever the easiest process on your end is, if you schedule a meeting and you'd like us to come, just send us an invite, and we'll make sure we're there. So I hear you and I understand, and we'll be at the meetings, and we'll answer questions anytime. I know Lois has my cell number. You're free to share it, Lois, with anybody here in the meeting. If you ever have a question, email Tanya, myself, anyone. Or give us a call directly, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. But I do like this platform because it is a way for the entire community to hear what's happening in the town, and I think that is important. So thank you for inviting us and letting us, share this, tonight with you.
Okay, thank you. You've always responded very promptly when I contacted you, so I appreciate that.
Got to keep you happy, Lois. I've got to keep you happy.
Okay. All right. I am going to close the meeting if I get a motion from one of my members to close this finance committee meeting. Bernie?
I move we close the meeting.
Whatever.
I second that.
All right. We've had a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
So the finance committee portion of this is closed at 7:17. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to close the select board meeting involving the school committee.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.